FDTL, flight duty time limit, is a very, very complicated subject. It's not something that you and I can just discuss over a 5 minutes coffee conversation. But having said which, what I'm going to tell is there are some key aspects of this flight duty time limit. It was put in place primarily to ensure that the pilots or the cabin crew, the cabin safety professionals, are not fatigued. And it is extremely, needless to say, it is important to ensure that the pilots are not fatigued. And this is not just in India, it happens all over the world. Some of the key aspects of that FDTL. One is the continuous hours of rest in a week. Second, what is the maximum number of hours that a pilot can fly on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, and an annual basis? So these are the caps that are available. Now, let's take this pilot rest, which has been doing the rounds in internet and in a lot of conversations. Sorry, the third aspect also is that how many night flights can they do and how many day flights they can do continuously. So these are some of the key aspects. Now, when you take the continuous pilot rest period, which is at 36 hours in India, which was, and government said that no, in a week, if the pilots have flown an X number of hours, then the continuous rest period should be 48 hours. That was the new regulation. Let us first of all see how it compares to global standards. US FAA requires 30 hours. Europe and EASA requires 36 hours. So, which means the Indian regulations were already on par with global standards. So, to say that the pilots aren't adequately rested, it's not in my place to comment on it, but all that I can tell you is that it was already in par with the global standards. Um, Now, are we going overboard with this 48? I don't want to comment on it because I've never flown an aeroplane. But one thing I can tell you is that the government probably did it with all good intent. We can only say that the government thought, give the pilots more rest from a safety perspective. There's nothing wrong in it. It just means that you'll need more pilots in an airline. Similarly, the night flights. You know, you say the 5 a.m., 5:15 a.m. takeoff, which means a pilot has to wake up at 2:30, get ready and come to the airport at least an hour before. Now, what this does is when you do this regularly, your circadian rhythm goes for a toss. And that can actually cause a lot more fatigue. It's not sleeping at 6 o'clock and waking up at 2 a.m. is not the same as sleeping at 10 a.m. and waking up at 6 a.m. The ATAs don't compare equally. So these are the reasons why the pilot flying limitations are there. Sujay, whatever we say at this stage is going to be speculation. None of us know what the fact is. I can speculate sitting here. I don't know if that's the right thing to do at a time when the nation's going through an aviation emergency, if I can use that aviation crisis. I think it may be a bit irresponsible of me to speculate. But some of the common reasons that could be attributed is probably they overestimated their capability to be able to do that. Or it could just be that, I saw this open letter, a purported open letter from some employees that's been coming out today. I don't know the veracity of it, but if that letter is believed to be true, then we are talking about pilots who are ready but who are not rostered. Then that opens up a very different set of can of worms, right? So it could be that. Typically, by hiring more and more pilots, your cost is going to go up. So I don't know if it was a cost-related decision because if they didn't have the pilots, I don't know if that was driving it, or it was just a simple case of rostering mismanagement. There could be a plethora of reasons, Sujoy, and honestly, I don't want to sit and speculate why Indigo did this. See, as I told you, some of these routes, it's only Indigo that flies. There's no other flight that flies in these routes, right? Now, if I have a problem, let's say, let's face it, Indigo's not known for its best of customer services, not yesterday, today, for a very, very long time. For them, reliability, they work like a machine, land on time, take off on time, and I'll do anything to ensure that I'm on time. So if it means I need to offload passengers, not communicate with them, I'll do it. And this is not something that Indigo has done it yesterday and today. It's been going on for a long time. Having said which, Indigo ran a fantastic company, right? They were profitable, they were reliable. So that level of, they ran a very good shop. So you have to give it to them. But the problem with the monopoly is, as a customer, if I have a problem with Indigo, I look around, there's nobody else to fly with. Previously, there was a Vistara. If Vistara got merged with Air India, today you don't have Air India and all the routes that Indigo is there. If you look at the recent past, we've had Kingfisher that folded. Of course, AirAsia merged with Air India Express. You have Jet Airways that folded. Prior to that, you had NEPC, the grandfathers of this industry, they folded. You had Paramount Airways that folded. So the larger question we have is, while monopoly is bad, why is there a monopoly? Structurally, Indian skies are very, very risky to operate in, Sujoy. And that's the reality we've got to acknowledge. That's the elephant in the room that the government needs to acknowledge now, and they need to do something about it. The
Uh,
Look at it. The aviation fuel is 50% of the cost. Now, no airline company in the country has control over the ATF. The problem is not that, not so much so that, but the problem is ATF is not within GST. So, which means each state has its own way of taxing it. There are some states where the taxes are as high as 30 to 35%, Sujoy, on 50% of my cost. Coupled with the fact that about 75% of my costs are paid for in dollars. Fuel, which is indexed to my Brent index, which is a dollar denominated index. Aircraft leases, which I have to pay to international lessors in dollars. Maintenance contracts with Airbus and Boeing in dollar denominated maintenance contracts. And if my rupee to dollar is not a stable currency, and we are a growing economy, we can't ensure that it's going to be stable all the time. Today we are looking at 90 rupees to a dollar, Sujoy. So obviously my costs are going through the roof. Structurally, we are not a very aviation-friendly economy, and we need to do something about that. I think Indigo needs to learn its lessons, but I don't think Indigo is in real danger in the near future because there's nobody else who will be able to replace them in the near future. So just that I think Indigo needs to be a lot more humble and put their heads down and treat and ensure that the passengers are treated fairly. I think that's the biggest lesson that Indigo should carry, and not think that they are unbeatable. Number one. The larger question on the government policies, yes, government is not here to run businesses, but having said which, we need to have one national carrier. Many large countries, many developing countries don't have this large one national carrier. Unfortunately, the national carrier that India had, I think government couldn't run it properly. So there are multiple ways to do this. We have our own sovereign wealth fund. We have our own sovereign fund. India has its own sovereign fund. Invest in an airline through the sovereign fund. Get a matching investment from private players and staff it with professionals to run it. Don't staff it with government employees to run it. Leave it to the professionals. Give the backing. Secondly, don't. I don't think we should try and make an example out of Indigo because we can't afford it at this stage. I'm sorry to say this because in a lot of cases we are trying to make examples out of peoples and situations that actually enhances the fear psychosis of even entering an already scary industry. So I think it needs to be a lot more collaborative. It needs to be a lot more constructive. Look at what are the structural issues ailing this industry.